everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Uplifting Content podcast with me, Ione Butler. We used to do these live on Facebook, but just because it was becoming too annoying to promote it and be technical about it, I just decided to pre-record them. So for anyone watching this video, it goes out first to our Facebook supporters. So thank you so much for everyone that is a supporter of the Uplifting Content Facebook page. And the episodes are released every Tuesday. So just a bit of info and housekeeping for you. Today's guest is someone that I actually met, I want to say 3 years ago, doing a Prince EA video. Someone who has inspired me a lot with the work and was fundamental in bringing about uplifting content. So this is nice that we are now connected again. My guest today is G Brian Benson, which we're going to call him Brian. But when you're looking for him online, you type G Brian Benson. Brian, how are you doing today?
I'm really good. Thank you, Ione.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah.
I like to kick these episodes off by asking the guest to share whatever it is that you would like to share about yourself, your story, where you come from, what you're doing, whatever might be nice for us to know about you to kick us off.
Sure. How many hours do we have? No,
We've only got 30 minutes, so you got to keep it
perfect.
pretty. I know it's like day one, I was born. It could get no one's gone that deep though.
Okay. Well, I was, but I won't. In a nutshell, I went from Oregon, Salem, Oregon originally, and I left my family's business 10 years ago, kind of into the unknown. And I really had no idea what I was going to do going forward, but just through listening to my intuition and following a couple of things that it was telling me, I ended up writing my first book, which I self-published, and that just kind of pointed me in a whole new direction. And I've just been on this interesting kind of crazy journey the last 10 years of doing a lot of things that I had no idea that were inside of me. And it's been really cool. Ultimately, I kind of, people ask me what I do, and I think I create positive content, whether it's in the form of a self-help book or a children's book or a short film that I write and sometimes act in, or videos, spoken word videos, you name it. I just try to, kind of interesting how everything that I've created has been an extension of my own self-growth process. So if I can learn, grow, and gain self-awareness for myself, I hope that what I'm putting out there helps other people do the same thing.
I like that. It sounds very much similar to my story and what I've been doing and working towards. And I'm curious how that transition, how did you transition from the job into this? Because I know that there's a lot of people that follow this platform that want to be shifting out of the work they're doing into something that's more meaningful, making an impact, making a difference, helping people. And it's quite difficult. It can be quite difficult to make that change. So I'd love for you to share a bit about how you moved into that.
Well, we had a golf center. It was a driving range, a retail store, and a 9-hole par 3 course that I'd been running for a long time, and I grew up working in. And I just felt like I was done growing there, and I kind of felt like I had this gift inside of me that wanted to come out, but I didn't know what it was. So I just had a chat with my dad, and luckily he was on board. He just wanted me to be happy, and so we decided to sell it. And so it took a year. Yeah, it took a year, though, for me to actually kind of hit the road and begin my new life, whatever that meant. And so that last year was kind of tough because I was just raring to go, but it needed to happen because that's when my first book kind of accidentally happened. I was just out of balance, and I sat down one day and wrote down 5 things that I knew that would help me during this period. And it did. And my intuition then said, expand the list. And so then this book kind of came through me in about a month, which was unexpected, but really exciting. And so then I self-published it, and I ended up leaving the business, and I moved to Reno, Nevada. I have a son. Well, I have a son who lived about 30 miles away in Northern California, who was just entering high school, and I wanted to be there to support him and really connect with him. But then I also kind of felt like I needed to be in a new place as well, just to kind of reinvent myself, if that makes sense. Because everybody knew me as, what I was doing there in Salem. So I felt like I needed to do some stuff for myself to really get to help share the book. And I was terrified to public speak. So when I got to Reno, I forced myself to do some community college speech classes. I did Toastmasters for a year. I hired someone to co-host an internet radio show with me. I created an interactive workshop because I thought I was being kind of clever, so I didn't have to talk the whole time, but it ended up working out okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I even took and I took an acting class too, with no plans of acting. But that's another story we might get to. But due to that kind of pointed me in the acting direction as well, which brought me to LA 5 years ago. So it was just really blind faith in just trusting my hunches and stepping toward them. And then kind of one thing kept happening after another, which gave me my next task or my next opportunity, which has brought me here.
I like it. So I think that I think it's important to have. So I'm guessing that from the state of the business, that kind of gave you a bit of a buffer and a bit of time to move into that, is an assumption that I'm making. Correct me if I'm wrong. Because I always feel like saying to people, if they're ever thinking of doing a life change, rather than just to like quit everything and just go for it, to have things in place or to have something set up so that you're not all or nothing and you don't have big pressure and stress on the thing that you're doing. So we'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I totally agree. I had a little bit of a cushion because I had a little bit of money coming out of the sale of the business. So, it wasn't totally all or nothing. I mean, it was all or nothing, yet I had a little bit of a cushion, which made a lot of difference. But, for someone who's wanting to make a change or feels like, it's time for a change, there's ways to kind of maybe gradually make it happen so that you don't totally feel stressed out trying to make it happen immediately, because more often, as it takes a while for things for seeds that we plant to come to fruition. And if we're feeling pressure, whether it's financially or whatever, it's going to block our energy as far as being able to really being creative and being open to just happily expecting the unexpected. And that's kind of the place that I got myself to be, that every day was potentially just an amazing experience because everything was so new for me. And I just kind of became this really great manifester because I just expected new opportunities to kind of fall into my lap, which in turn forced me to step out of my comfort zone, which I continually did over and over, which wasn't always easy, but yet became this really interesting juxtaposition of moving forward and feeling alive, yet being forced to see what I was capable of and what was inside of me.
It's interesting because I like that you had that expectation of that good thing, that things are coming and stuff is on its way. Because I'm definitely a firm believer in the law of the attraction and putting stuff out into the universe. And oftentimes it comes back and it's just so on point. But there's sometimes where I just I don't have the clear vision, and like relationships, for example. So I'm single. I've been single for a long time, which is fine by me because I don't need to be in a relationship for the sake of it. So I'm okay.
I hear you. I'm kind of the same way.
Right. Yeah. So there's this putting it out there and like having that expectation that someone's coming, but it's not the same as when I'm like, I'm going to space because I am going to space, or like I'm getting my Tesla at some point. I'm gonna get Tesla, or like I'm gonna build a retreat center in Joshua Tree. Like these things are very definite, and then there's things that are not so definite for me. And I'm curious to hear with your visualizing your expectations and that stuff. Like how has that been for you? What can you advise to people?
I think there's a very, very fine line of kind of like maybe goal setting or maybe having an idea how you want something to come into your life. And as well, and then the different side of it is just have that intention and being open to however you get there. Because I think sometimes goals can be a little bit narrow and we feel like it has to happen a certain way.
Yeah.
And that in essence is a form of control. And we're usually not benefited when we try to control stuff too much. And I know myself have gotten into some problems with that. because I do feel like I know where I'm headed. Um, Even with shaking knees and all. I mean, when I was 3, I told my mom I was put here to inspire people.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's
I
amazing.
know, right?
Where did that come
So
from?
I don't know. I just told her that, and she reminded me not too long ago. So it's kind of interesting how it's,
Mm,
um, it. I guess it's kind of happening, and so it's like my life mission was already kind of set there for me, and just by honoring my intuition, I got on that ride,
mm,
and so I really try hard to just hold an intention and be open to however I get to it. Because, I had no plans on acting or doing any of this stuff. Initially, when I started writing the books, I felt like, okay, well, this is maybe how it's going to be. But when I broadened my horizons on reaching it, then all these other things started happening, acting and what have you. And for me, it was such an important part of solidifying my foundation and learning how to be in front of a camera, learning how to be more comfortable in front of people, learning how to feel more
mm,
publicly.
mm,
Acting has been a great training ground for me with that. Even though I've kind of taken a half a step back since then, it was what I needed to do. And
mm-hmm.
so I guess for me, goals are fine, but just remember that you need to kind of lay off a little bit and not squeeze it too tightly and feel
Mm-hmm.
like you have to do it a certain way, because that can be counterproductive.
And limiting, yeah, if you're just sort of going at it in one direction.
Mm-hmm.
Or just trying to make something work in one way, trying and kind of not surrendering to the process of life and what's unfolding.
Yeah, and I don't know if I quite answered your question, because I mean, I think there's different times when maybe it takes a little bit of a different approach. Like maybe
Mhm.
for a relationship example, we all need connection and intimacy on some levels, and we all want to kind of try to find that in a way that works for ourselves and our lifestyle and what have you. And I think if we go looking for it too tough, too hard, we might not. I don't know. We can lose ourselves a little bit.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Try to make something fit that might not necessarily be a good fit.
Mhm. Mhm.
So there's this fine line of like putting it out there that you would like to meet someone that you can connect with and really be yourself, and vice versa. Um,
Mm.
and just try to allow it to come in instead of just, I'm on a mission.
Yes, yeah, I definitely think there's an element of just belief and trust and faith and letting it be, being open to all the possibilities and trying stuff, but not just being so forceful with it. Because, like, yeah, I think that changes the energy and it changes the output, and then it makes it about lack. I feel when you're forcing something, it's saying I don't have it and I need this to have this, rather than putting it out there, believing that it's already there and it's going to come when it's ready. It's a different type of energy. So I'm all for that.
Agreed. And I think sometimes if we're trying to force something specifically like that, I think maybe certain expectations get in the way that can really
Mm.
cloud things and mess things up.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, my expectations in relation my expectations that I've had for relationships have definitely got in the way of what could unfold, because I've decided this is how it needs to be. And oh
Yeah.
god, it did not go very well.
We've all done that.
Yeah, yeah. So the title for this episode was "Let's talk about how to live a fun, balanced, healthy life." And so you talk about life balance a lot. Could you share a bit about what that means to you and how you found that kind of life balance?
Yeah. I think it's funny. It's kind of no coincidence that my very first book was on a whole bunch of different ways to stay in balance, because going forward, I really needed to learn those lessons and have that understanding of how to maintain balance going forward with all that I've been doing. And for me, balance, staying in balance and kind of being aware of what works for me routine wise. And you know what I mean? It's been like my, oh God, it's been my lifesaver. It's been so
Mm-hmm.
important for me to follow that and have that in my life, which in turn, you, it's been that it's really helped me gain a lot of self-awareness,
Mm-hmm.
and I can recognize those times when I start to feel tired and uncreative, and instead of trying to push through like I used to, and nothing would happen, and I'd waste a lot of time trying to get work done, I now back off and do some of the things that I know that will maybe help refill my cup, whether it's a day trip or take a whole week off, or just go for a hike. I mean, there's different levels of what I might need at a particular time.
I can totally relate to that. There's a lot of my day where I'm kind of like filling it with stuff because I feel like I should be working.
Yes,
And
yes,
I'm
yes.
reading a really great book by someone that I'm interviewing in a few weeks. And again, like we've all been, and he talks about how, we've been told by society that we have to work hard and that we've
Yes.
kind of got to do stuff. And actually, that we've been sold this idea of like an 8-hour work day. But actually, if you can get your stuff done in an hour, why not work for an hour a day and then spend the rest of the day doing something that you enjoy if you get your stuff done, which typically tends to be what I do. I just kind of fill a day because I feel like I should be working, not being very productive, when I should have just worked solidly for an hour, done a bunch of stuff, and then just been like, Ione, you live in LA. You don't have to go to work. Go and do whatever you want. Like that's kind of
Yes. Yes. No, I know. I mean, I totally agree with you. There's a part of me though that, and I'm sure you're the same way, that there's this driven nature that gets into my way a little bit where, because it really technically is something we could be doing all the time, whether it's creating, whether it's marketing, whether it's whatever, right? And so it's just, it's a combination of just really allowing ourselves to take a break when we need it. So that, and every time that I've taken a break, when I've come back, I've been so much more creative and gotten so much done in such a short period of time that it's just, it's against human nature to we think we need to push through. But I don't know, I can get a lot of work done when I'm rested and whole.
Right. And inspired. Yes. Rather than forcing when you're not feeling it. So you've kindly offered to give away 5 hardback copies of your new book, Habits for Success, and then 5 audiobooks to winners, which would be great for our listeners that are overseas. And I'd love for you to, so actually you can tell us about that one, and then also your previous book. And I love that you said that it came to you, it just sort of came to you. And I love that. And also at the same time, I hate that, because I've heard other people talk about this. And one of them is Gabby Bernstein, who I interviewed a little while back. And she said, like, things come, because then when I'm not like divinely connected to source and like stuff is being channeled through me, I get really stressed out by it. I'm like,
I know.
when is the inspiration going to come? So we'd love to hear about your experience with that and the books.
Sure. Well, so the new one, Habits, it's my 5th book. It's my 3rd self-help book, and I've also done 2 children's books. But this is my first book with a publisher. Everything else I've done was self-published. And so, I like to write, but I'm not one of those that just writes every day. I only write when it kind of comes through me, or when I feel the impetus to. But the new book, it's just a culmination of the last 10 years of my life. Another thing that my mom reminded me about not too long ago is she said that the only word that I ever said was why. I just kept asking, why, Mom? Why is this? Why? Right? And so I think as I've been on my own kind of version of my own hero's journey the last 10 years, I've sat in the observer's role, paying attention of my own life, kind of, because I've always tried to be the best version of myself. So I'm paying attention to what works, what doesn't work, where I get tripped up, where I'm, squeezing too tight, you name it, what have you. And so all these things I've written about, I think there's like 47 or 48 chapters, are just things that have been important for me in my own self-growth and self-awareness process. And so I just tried to write it in an entertaining, inspiring, and thought-provoking way, and included stories and just why I feel like each particular habit's important for our foundation.
And can you tell us some of those habits?
Yeah. One of them is get creative. I think it's really important for everybody to be creative. I don't want everybody to think that they have to produce an amazing piece of work or art or whatever. That doesn't necessarily, mean being creative. I think, it could just be journaling. It could be just doodling. It could be gardening, but I think being creative is so important for our souls. And I think in some way it's us connecting with source at the same time. And so I think it really is a fulfilling, activity for us. And I think it just makes our lives much more enjoyable,
Mm-hmm.
and it can allow us to share as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think getting creative is really important.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Um, Another one I think that's in there is be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really important. Ultimately, I think at our core, we all are trying to be, as authentic as we can be. And, some of us, have things that are holding us back for whatever reason, maybe our modeling or experiences or whatever. But yet when, if we can really learn how to be vulnerable and share, it just gives other people permission to do the same thing. And I think when we can be vulnerable, it just releases a lot of the weight that we
Yeah.
carry around.
Yeah.
I think it can really help us maybe not try to fill those voids in unhealthy ways, in trying to find that self-acceptance and self-love that we all want.
Yeah.
And so I think that's very important too.
That to me, the vulnerability thing has been something that's led to a lot of the work that I've done, just sort of sharing authentically what's going on with me. And a lot of people have resonated with it, and
Mm.
it's helped a lot of people. And you're right. I think that we put a lot of, there's just this facade that we kind of put on, and it's exhausting and it's frustrating. And especially if there's a lot of emotional stuff going on with you, just, pretending that you're okay when you're not. It was my birthday a couple of weeks ago, and I had two girlfriends didn't want to come to my birthday. One of them because the shooting had just happened in Thousand Oaks, and then the fires were happening, and she was just very upset by the whole thing. And another one, my girlfriend was having issues with her boyfriend and like a lot of stress and like a lot of turmoil going on. And they were like, "I'm so sorry, I can't come." And I was like, "I absolutely don't mind. I would rather you be at home and deal with what you need than come to my party and pretend to put on a happy face just for everyone." Because I just find that the most heartbreaking thing, when we put on this, like, "I'm fine," when we're dying inside. Like, it's not fine, like, and it's
Yeah.
okay to be real. And as soon as I share those things that are going on with me, I feel really shit right now, and I don't know what it is or whatever's going on. Just that relief. It just saves so much energy than putting that mask on.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think when you just admit it, then I think it begins the healing process, or at least you're saying that I'm open to working through this, instead of just fight. And social media makes it tough because
Mm.
more often than not, we're just seeing everybody's best when we're
Mhm.
comparing that with our worst.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Totally.
so,
Which is why I try to share authentically on social, but there is like a huge part of me too that filters everything that I put up there, that posts stuff to get as many likes as possible. It's like,
I know.
I hate it.
It doesn't. I do too. And I'm an introverted kind of person by nature. I'm an outgoing introvert. And so sometimes, I'm also kind of private. So I share a lot, but yet there's still a part of me that needs to keep some of that, on to me for myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is a fine line, and that whole marketing thing on social media, just, I'm proud of what I've done and I want to share it, but yet it doesn't always feel good
Yeah.
because it just doesn't feel like I'm doing it authentically. I mean, I'm trying to.
It's difficult because I feel like as soon as you start to question, as soon
Look
as you
at
start to
me.
think
Yeah.
about, yeah, well, there's that. But as soon as you start to craft something, as soon as you're like, what am I going to say for this post? Or let me see,
Yes.
there's an element of it that is not authentic because you're deliberately trying to do something to create. It just in itself, it's very difficult to be. So I think for me, it's rather than um, trying to be completely pure with everything I'm posting, just having a different attitude towards what I'm posting. I
Mm-hmm.
interviewed, well, actually, no, I didn't, but we had Jay Shetty
Mm.
for the Uplifting Content podcast. The Uplifting Content. We did a summit last year, and he was really great and talked about how the stuff that he posts basically just asks himself like a filter question of like, you know, what is this doing for people? What is my reason behind posting this message? So if you are spending 20 minutes crafting a post because you think that it's going to really have a profound impact on somebody, then that's great. I, on the other hand, have a negative attitude about it where I'm like, oh, I'm having to think about it, so it's fake, and I hate social, I don't want to be fake, and I've got all this drama attached to it and story.
Right.
We can do it as long as we're just, you know, why am I doing it? What is it saying? How is it helping? Asking those questions.
It's, you know, there's such a fine line. And I think those times when we do feel like we need to do it, and we just put it out there, our energy is not behind it. And, you know, I don't know if you noticed, I mean, if people respond to it differently or not, but, yeah, that's such a tough one because I feel, oh, I need to do something. So I'll just find something and I'll slap it up there. But, but those times when I really, you know, I feel inspired to just make a mention of this, whatever, people love it, you know, so it's almost better maybe not to do anything until you feel like it. And I don't know.
I would say that that's true too. Yeah. Rather than just mindlessly just posting something for the sake of it, because there's enough content anyway. There's too much stuff out there. So why add to that noise? And if we all just were to post when we had something real meaningful to say, how better things would be.
Right. But we don't want people to forget about us. I know. You're right. And I'm going to try to do that better.
Yeah. I'm gonna see if I can implement that. No, definitely, because I've definitely been looking at shifting what's going on the Facebook page and on social, and like kind of really figuring out what I want to say rather than just hammering stuff out and seeing how that works. But it's interesting.
I feel you.
Yeah. So everyone, that's it. That's our time is up. It goes super quick.
Wow.
You can enter to win Brian's book. It'll be, all the information will be in the show notes or the captions for this post. And we've got links to all of his stuffs everywhere. But actually, why don't you share with us where is a good place for people to find you?
Thank you. My website's gbrianbenson.com, and all the books, and there's videos and short films and all kinds of cool stuff on there. And so gbrianbenson.com, and then you can find the new book at the link habitsforsuccessbook.com.
Beautiful. And so what is next for you? Obviously, you're going to be pushing the book for a little while, but what's next for you? What are you excited about?
I'm excited to, you know, there's probably always been a little bit of fear. I mean, I did a TEDx talk a few years ago, but I want to speak more. And so I'm really dedicating next year just to kind of trying to share the book, but also get out and do a lot more speaking.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I feel you with that. It's really fun, but to me it can be incredibly stressful, and I put so much pressure on myself for it, like crafting the perfect talk. And what I found is when I just have talking points and talk and free flow, it's much easier and more enjoyable.
Well, yes, me too. I would rather just take the energy of the room and a question and just let it evolve rather than regurgitate something. And something I try to really think about every time, and you might already do this, but just think about, it's like whenever you have to give a talk or something, to say, it's not about me, it's about sharing me. And that kind of helps take the pressure off for me.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. I can do that.
Yes, you can. And so can I.
Well, thanks everyone for listening. I'll be back next Tuesday with another episode. For anyone on the Facebook, remember to go to following and then see first at the top of the page so that you actually see the posts from us when we come out. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, and check out our supporter program. We'll have links to that in the subscriptions too. I'll be doing weekly Facebook Lives with the supporters only, so it's a great chance to talk about and discuss anything that you've got going on, and you get loads of other exclusive content. But Brian, thanks again for joining me today, and I look forward to reading the book and giving away 10 copies to you guys, so make sure that you enter.
Thank you, Ione. It was a lot of fun.
My pleasure. Take care.
You too.